Namaste everyone, welcome to Advaita Vedanta Satsang House. The ongoing sessions are on Bhagavad Gita from an Advaita perspective, offered by Bindoji. We are on chapter 4 and the replays for all these earlier rooms are available in Clubhouse, or you could access them in the links that I'll provide in the chat. One is a YouTube channel, Advaita Retold. There are also links provided for Apple Podcasts and Spotify, where you find the repository of these talks. There's also a book published by Artemisia, which is titled The Imaginary Door, and it's available on Amazon, which is based on Bindoji's insights into Advaita. For housekeeping, I'll close the chat and hand raising, and when Bindoji finishes the class in about an hour, we'll open up those channels for Q&A. As always, thank you, Bindoji. Over to you.
Thank you, Prakash. Namaste and Hari Om to all of you. My invocations. Om Namo Brahmadibhyo Brahma Vidya Sampradaya Kartrubhyo Vamsha Rishibhyo Mahatbhyo Namo Gurubhyaha Shruti Smriti Purana Alayam Karunalayam Namami Bhagavad Padam Shankaram Loga Shankaram Shankaram Shankaracharyam Keshavam Badarayanam Sutra Bhashikritau Vande Bhagavantau Punah Punah Ishvaro Guru Ratmeti Murti Veda Vibhagine Vyomavatyapta Dehaya Dakshinamurtaye Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. The Gita Dhyana Shlokam. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Marutaha Stunvanti Divyastavai Vedai Sangapada Panishadai Gayanti Yam Samaga Dhyanavastita Tadgatena Manasa Pashyanti Yam Yogino Yasyandam na vidussura suragana Devaya tasmai namaha Devaya tasmai namaha Devaya tasmai namaha. Om. We are on the 25th verse where we completed the explanation, but the commentary is to be read and translated or explained. The commentary is divided into two things: ritualistic worship, which is the Deva Yajna, and then there is a higher inner Yajna of knowledge, Jnana Yajna, Atma Brahma Aikya Darshana. This is the 25th verse is Deva Meva Deva Ijyande Yena Yajna Yajanena Asau Devo Yajna. That sacrifice by which the gods alone are worshipped, that is called the Daiva Yajna or divine sacrifice. Tameva apare yajnam yoginaha karminaha paryupasate kurvanti ityartaha. Some yogis, ritualists who perform the yajnas, perform that very sacrifice, that Deva Yajna. But then there is a higher Yajna. Brahmagnav, in the fire of Brahman, Satyajnanam Anandam Brahma, the Taittiriya, Vijnanam Anandam Brahma, Yat Sakshat Aparokshat Brahma, Ya Atma Sarva Antaraha. All of them are from Brihadaranya Upanishad. Ityadi Vachanoktam Ashanayadi Sarva Samsara Dharma Varjitam. Neti Neti iti Nirasta Shesha Vishesham Brahma Shabdena Uchyate. So, in the fire of Brahman, refers to the Brahman itself, described in the scriptures as Satyam Jnanam Anandam Brahma, the truth, knowledge and infinite. The Taittiriya Upanishad. Vijnanam Anandam Brahma. The consciousness and bliss is Brahma. Yat Sakshat Aparokshat Brahma. The immediate self within all is Brahma. Ya Atma Sarvantaraha. This immediate self is within all, free from all worldly attributes like hunger and defined through neti neti, devoid of all distinctions. Brahma chatat agnischa saha homadi karanatva vivikshaya Brahmagni. That Brahman itself, considered as the locus of offering, fire, is called Brahman fire or Brahmagni. Tasmin Brahmagnau apare anya Brahmavidaha. In that Brahman fire, others, the knowers of Brahman, they do the yajna. Yajnam, yajna shabda vachya atma, offer the sacrifice, which here means the self. Atmanasu yajna shabdasya pathat. Since yajna is used as the name for the self, tam atmanam yajnam paramartataha parameva brahma santam buddhyadyupadi samyuktam adhyasta sarvopadika dharman ahu iti rupa. They offer the self, which appears associated with the limiting adjuncts like intellect, buddhyadyupadi samyuktam. Adhyasta sarvadi dharmakam ahuhu iti rupam is as an appellation. So adhyasta sarva upadi dharmakam means the self is endowed with all attributes, superimposed due to ignorance. Yajnena eva atmana eva ukta lakshanena upajuhvati prakshipanti. They offer it by the self itself onto Brahman. Sopatikasya atmanaha nirupatikena parabrahma swarupenaiva yad darshanam saha tasmin homaha. The vision by which the conditioned self is seen as none other than the unconditioned Brahman. That itself is the oblation or the inner sacrifice. Tam kurvandi brahmatmaikyatva darshana nishtaha sannyasinaha ityartha. That is what the renunciates or the sannyasis, established in the knowledge of the identity of the self and Brahman, what they perform. So Shankaracharya explains that while some perform ritual sacrifices to the gods, the highest yogis perform the inner sacrifice, in which the individual self, along with the all limiting adjuncts, that is the buddhyadi, is offered into the fire of Brahman through knowledge, resulting in the realization of the identity of the self with the Brahman. So here is what in the last class we discussed. Offering this as identity of the self with the Brahman. The individual is not separate from Brahman. For that, all the instruments, now in the next two verses we will see more of them, where the indriyas, prana, etc. being coming, they are all functioning in the body. But their functions are not seen as independent function. All of them are in the act of yajna or sacrifice. Why is the eye seeing? Because it is the seeing of the eye is the sacrifice it is doing for the self, being an instrument of the Atma. The ears are hearing. it is doing a sacrifice by hearing to the Atma. This way, when we compare all the instruments, the senses, the karmendriyas, etc., the whole body becomes a yajna in the form of a sacrifice to the self which is being pulsating in the body, using the instruments of the body for its interaction with the world outside. Now, how the world outside also becomes part of this yajna, we will see it in the coming verses. So, soyam samyak darshana lakshanam yajnas daiva yajnadishu yajneshu उपदीक्षप्यन्ते ब्रह्मार्पणम् इत्यादि श्लोकैः प्रस्तुत श्रेयान् द्रव्यमयाद्य यज्ञात् ज्ञानयज्ञ परन्तपः इत्यादिना स्तुत्यर्थम्. All these verses, from this verse which we completed onwards till the 33rd verse. The 33rd verse is the final one, which is culminating as the Brahmarpanam of the final sacrifice of all these things put together as a jnana yajna. That is how the whole jnana, the vistara, daiva yajna vistara is taking place. So if you look at the contextual position 25 verse which completed now, open the treatise on yajna with the broadest contrast, starting with the external most ritual as Daiva Yajna. And it is also comparing the Brahmagni Yajna, the non-dual offering into Brahman by the yogis. The 26th verse descends from the cosmic philosophical level to the psycho-philosophical level, presenting two complementary yajnas that between them constitute the complete Advaitic treatment of the Indriya and Vishaya, the senses and the sense organs, senses, objects, relationship, the senses and their objects, the most immediate field of samsaric engagement. The verse presents the paired inversion. Two groups of practitioners, each making different approach, but complementary offering. This is the poetic beauty of Gita also. The first group offers senses, shotradi, indriyas, into the fires of samyama, yamas, yama, dama, etc., as a restraint. While the second group offers the sense object, which is the objects for the senses, into the fire of the senses. There the senses becomes the fire, representing the fire of Brahma. The senses are also Brahman. So, when the Brahma Havihi, Brahmagno Brahmanahutam, that offering of Brahman into Brahman. So here the Indriyas or the sense organs becomes the consumers or the fire of consummating fire, into which Shabdadi Vishayas, not Shabdadi Indriyas, not the sense organs, but the sense objects is what is offered into the fire. So there are two sets of this thing. The first line is where the Samadama, etc., Uparati, etc. are being practiced by the one set of people. That is one form of a yajna, which is the samsaric yajna. But there is a second group, the jnanis. They also use the same sense organs. But the sense organ becomes the consummating fire, into which when they hear, when they see, when they touch, etc., the objects becomes Brahman, offered into the fire of the sense organ. So this is the pairing, not an accidental one. It encodes the complete Advaitic dialectic of Indriya Vishaya interaction. One group renounces through restraint, samyama. The other engages through consecrated offering of Indriya Agni Yajna. Shankaracharya accept both are genuine yajnas, but their Advaitic implications differ profoundly, and their synthesis points towards Brahma Karma Samadhi of 24. Shrotradini Indriyani. The senses beginning with the Shrotra, hearing. The 5 Jnanendriyas are Shrotra means hearing, Tvak, touch, Chakshus is sight, Rasana is the taste, Ghana is the smell. So these are the Shrotrindriyani. Samyamagnishu, into the fire of Samyama. That is, Samyama is to restrain thoroughly, Samyak Samayama. Complete inner restraint or total withdrawal of the senses from their sense objects. So Samyamagni, the fire of restraint, are Sama, Dama, Uparati, Titiksha, the fourfold inner sadhana of the Andakarana Shodhana, purification of the inner instrument. These are fires because they burn, tapanti, what? Raga, Dvesha impulses of the senses, consuming the fuel of Vishayasakti, sense attachments. So, the yajna, by doing Sama, Dama, Uparati, Titiksha, what is being done is, the inner instrument is being purified by offering the Vishayas which are otherwise creating the Raga, Dvesha, the attachment and repulsion in the mind, becomes the offerings for the sense organs itself, when they are under the control of Shama, Dama, Uparati, Titiksha. They don't indulge in the sense enjoyment, but the sense objects become reminders for controlling the senses for getting into the Raga and Dvesha. So Shabdadi Vishayan, the sense objects beginning with the Shabda, the 5 Tanmatras. What are the sense objects? Shabda, sound, Sparsha, touch sensation, Rupa, form or color, Rasa, taste, quality, Gandha, smell. The Adi parallels the first lines Shrotradi, and here it is Shabdadi. So it is now 1-to-1 comparison. The Shrotra is listening Shabda, Tvak, Sparsha, eyes, Rupa, then tongue, taste, and nose, smell. So the 5 objects correspond to 5 senses, the complete sensory universe. So both the object plus the sense organs put together, the entire universe is captured in it. And Indriyagnishu, into the fire of Indriyas. The senses themselves are here the fires. The sense organs are Agnis, receiving the oblation of sense objects. This is the inversion of the first line where the Indriyas are under the regulation of Samadama, etc. The Indriyas are the Havis offered into Samyama fire. So there Samadama, Uparati, Titiksha becomes the fire, and the Indriyas, when they are getting agitated, when the Vishayas are in contact, is restrained by burning them into the fire of Samadama, Uparati, Titiksha. While in the second line, the Indriyas become the Agni, receiving the Vishaya, which are the Havis or the oblation. The first Yajna, Samyama Yajna. Ch04-23-Shrimad Indriyas Juhvati Samyamagnishu. They offer the senses Ch04-23 into the fire of restraint, Samyamadi. Shankaracharya identifies these practitioners as Shamadama Nishtas, those whose primary sadhana is the thoroughgoing restraint of the sense faculties. The fires of Samyama fires are the four inner disciplines that constitute the third member of the sadhana chatushtaya. Shama is the inner restraint, withdrawal of manas from the Vishaya Sankalpa. The fire that burns the chitta, projective outward movement. Chitta's projective outward movement. Dhamma is the outer restrainment, withdrawal of the indriyas from Vishaya contact. The fire that burns the sense organs, seeking of objects. Uparati, cessation. The natural cessation of Vishayasakti, Vishaya pursuit. Once Shama and Dhamma are established, the fire that burns the pravritti tendency. Pravritti is outward movement. And titiksha, endurance. Patient non-reaction to dualities, dvandvas. The fire that burns raga and dvesha. They said the dualities. Responses to unavoidable Vishaya contact. There is unavoidable Vishaya contact because we are living in the world. But when the contact happens, there is a tendency internally for reacting toward the dualities of attraction and repulsion. When you restrain that endurance is called titiksha. By offering the senses, which are the havis, oblations, into the fire of agnis, the practitioner performs yajna of inner purification, burning away the Vishaya Sakti, sense attachments. That is the fuel of samsara's continuation. Shankaracharya notes that this is the sadhana path of the aspirant for jnana. The Viveka Vairagya established mumukshu who withdraws the senses from the objects as a precondition for Atmajnana or Atmavichara. The Samyama Yajna clears the field for arising Tattvajnana by removing the primary obstacle, that is the Vishaya Sakti or the attraction by the sense objects, as Avarana Vikshepa of the Chitta, the covering and the projection of the mind. The Advaitic significance. Samyama fires consume the fuel of Adhyasa from the Advaitic point of view. The outward object-directed movement of the Chitta that perpetually re-establishes Deha Vishaya Abhimana. That is the identification with the body and the sense objects. When this fuel is consumed, the natural luminosity, self-luminosity of the Atman begins to be revealed, the Avarana thinning through the Samyama Tapas. The second Yajna, Indriya Agni Yajna, the second line. It is a group of offering sense objects into the sense fires. Shabdadin Vishayan Anye Indriyagnishu Jihvati. Others offer the sense objects, Shabdadi, etc., into the fires of senses, Indriyagnis. This is a more philosophically paradoxical of the two yajnas. And Shankaracharya gives it the highest attention. Who are these others who offer sense objects into the senses? And how does this constitute the yajna rather than mere sensory indulgence? The answer involves two levels of interpretation. both of which are supplementary to each other. The Upasana Marga, the practitioners or sadhakas, certain upasakas perform a specific inner yajna in which each sense experience is consciously offered as oblation into the Brahman residing in the sense organ. The Antaryami, the inner controller in each indriya. When hearing a sound, the practitioner offers the sound as the oblation to the fire of hearing, understood as the divine fire of the ear. The Atman that dwells in the ear as its Adhishtadr, means presiding deity. This transforms every sensory experience into conscious yajna, the continual offering of the phenomenal world into the divine fire of consciousness dwelling and functioning through each organ. This is the sadhaka's method of yajna. But at the jitnyasu level also, he is also doing yajna because he is also in the Jnana Nishtha Jivan Mukta who is performing in the world. So Jnana Nishtha practitioners, the Jivan Mukta, whose chetas is Jnana Avasthita Chetasa, offers all sense objects into the fire of senses in the sense that recognizing all objects of senses as Brahman. Brahma Havihi. In the 24th verse we said that. And all Indriyas as the fires, Brahmagno. And every sensory encounter is simultaneously a Brahma Yajna. The Jivan Mukta does not withdraw from the sense objects using samyama, samadhama, etc. but engages with them as Brahman, offering Brahman into the Brahman fire. Yajne neva upajihvati, at the sensory level. The Indriya Vishaya matrix, as a complete Advaitic analysis, Shankaracharya reads the paired structure of 26 as representing the complete Advaitic analysis of Indriya Vishaya relationship. The 5 sense organs like Shrotradi and their 5 sense objects Shabdadi constitute the primary interface between the Jiva and the Jagat. The field where samsara is perpetually reinforced when Vishaya Sakti generating karma bandha. So Vishaya Sakti means the attraction toward the sense objects. Generate the karma bandha means bondage due to samsara. Or dissolved yajna drishti in the Brahma Yajna, recognizing Brahman in all Vishayas. The moment the Vishayas or the sense objects become Brahman for the Mumukshu or for the Jivan Mukta, there the Yajna Drishti becomes Brahma Havi, Brahmagno, Brahmanahutam. By presenting both the offering of senses into Samyama fires and offering of Vishayas into Indriya fires as valid Yajna, the verse establishes 3 clear-cut paths. No sensory experience is beyond Yajna. Whether the practitioner withdraws the senses by samadhama, etc., or consecrates sensory engagement, Indriya Yajna, both are Yajna and both dissolve the karma bandha, provided the inner condition is Gata Sangha Muktaha Jnanavasthita Chetasa, which was there in the 23rd verse. If that is the internal resolve, whether you are doing the first yajna or whether you are doing the second yajna, both dissolves the karma bandha. But if you don't have the gata sanka, mukta, jnanavastita chedasa, that is the sadhaka. In that case, he has to do the samyama as shamadama uparati titiksha. Then, both paths have same ultimate direction towards the Brahma Karma Samadhi, where the distinction between the offering the sense and offering the sense object collapses into recognition that both senses and objects are Brahman. And any transaction between them is Brahman offering Brahman into Brahman's fire. There is an apparent opposition or seemingly reverse order. Samyama versus engagement is Vyavaharika. At the Paramarthika level, Samyama becomes withdrawing the senses from objects, and Indriya Agni Yajna, offering objects into the fire, sense fires, are identical in their ultimate result. Both these actions dissolve the Vishaya Sakti, means attraction toward the sense object. That drives the samsara. One by removal, other by consecration. This is the Advaitic non-opposition of Nivritti and Pravritti. When both are performed as Yajna, both Pravritti and Nivritti is towards Brahman, whichever path you take. And Sadhana Chatushtaya and Pratyahara, do they have any role when we say this Shamadama, Uparati Titiksha or Pratyahara? Shankaracharya connects first Yajna, that Samyama Yagni, to the Sadhana Chatushtaya Shat Sampatti, particularly Shamadama, Uparati Titiksha, and to the yogic Pratyahara, withdrawal of senses, offering Srotradi Indriyas into Samyama Agni is Gita's expression of Pratyahara as Yajna. What Patanjali calls as the fifth Anga of the Ashtanga Yoga, here redescribed as oblation offered into the sacred fire, elevating it from mere technique into a cosmic offering. Because the fifth Anga of the Ashtanga Yoga is a technique. But if the attitude becomes Yajna, then it becomes a cosmic offering. This transformation of the technique into Yajna is the versus fundamental pedagogical contribution. It takes the psychological disciplines of sense restraint and consecrated engagement and reveals them as participations in the Brahma Yajna. Every moment of a genuine samyama is a moment of Brahman receiving the offering of Brahman senses into Brahman's purifying fire. So with this 26, the Yajna Vistara has descended from the cosmic Brahma Yajna to psychophysiological demonstration that even the most immediate level of experience, sensory contact, can be converted into a cosmic Yajna. The verse thus continues Yajna Prakarana's central argument. Every domain of human experience, whether it is cosmic, ritual, sensory or psychological, is a potential field of Brahma Karma Samadhi. And in each field, the Yajna appropriate to that domain when performed with the Jnanavastita Chetasa, abiding in the knowledge of Jnana, participates in the Karma Samagra Pravilina. it dissolves the entire karma bondage. And Brahmaiva Gandavyam. And the destination becomes Brahma. The Bhashya goes like this. Shrotradini indriyani anye yogenaha samyamagnishu juhvati. Pratindriyam samyamo vidyate iti bahuvachanam. Some yogis offer senses as hearing, etc. into the fire of restraint. The plural fires is used because restraint differs with the respect of each of the individual senses. Samyama eva agnayaha teshu juhvati. Indriya samyamam eva kurvanti ityartha. Those restrained themselves are fires, and into them they offer the senses. This is they practice restraint of the senses. Shabdadin vishayan anye indriyagnishu juhvati. Indriyani eva agnayaha. Teshu indriyagnishu juhvati. Others offer sound and other sense objects into the fires of senses. The senses themselves are the fires. They offer objects of senses into those sense fires. Shrotradibihi aviruddha vishaya grahanam homam manyante. They regard the reception of the unobjectionable sense objects through hearing and other senses as a kind of sacrifice. Therefore, Shankaracharya explains that some yogis practice sacrifice, restraining senses and withdrawing them from objects, while others perform more of a moderate discipline by allowing senses to engage, but only with the proper objects in the regulated way. Both are preparatory yogic yajnas meant to purify the mind for self-knowledge. 27 now, next verse, presents more comprehensive and more internalized yajna. One that subsumes all sensory and pranic activity into single fire. The Atma Samyama Yoga Agni, the fire of the self-restrained yoga, which is crucially qualified as Jnana Deepita, kindled by the fire of knowledge. This qualifier is the verse's philosophical apex and Shankaracharya's primary exegetical focus, that the fire that receives all offerings is not merely restrained as a discipline, but restrained illumined by the knowledge of Atman. That is, the Jnana Akartritva established through verses 13 through 22 is now being put into practice. Sarvani indriya karmani prana karmani chapare atma samyoga agnou juhvadi jnana deepite. The elevation in this yajna from the external yajna through sensory yajna to the comprehensive inner yajna that offers everything, all indriya and karma. Not only indriyas as the sense object, but here the karmic indriyas or the sense objects of action, and all prana karma, the prana, apana, samana, yana, udana, all of them into a single fire of Atma Samyama, illumined by jnana. This is the closest yajna vistara comes before the jnana yajna to the direct Brahma Karma Samadhi. So what are that? Sarvani indriya karmani, all activities of the senses, not merely the senses themselves, which was mentioned in the previous verse, but the full range of indriya activity. Here it is the activity, not the objects and the senses. Please understand that. Here the importance is into the active. So it moves from the sense of ear and sound to hearing, touching, seeing, tasting, smelling. The jnanendriyas of operations. As well as speaking, grasping, moving, procreating, eliminating of the 5 prana. Karmendriya operations. The sarva means all without exception, is crucial in this yajna because it is comprehensive, not selective. Nothing of sensory activity is excluded from this offering. Prana karmanihi, the activities of the prana. The pranas are the 5 vital forces governing the body's physiological activity. The prana is the inward breath governing the intake, oxygen intake. Apana is the outward breath governing the elimination of carbon dioxide. Samana, the equalizing and the governing, which is managing the digestion, assimilation, etc. The Udana is the upward governing speech, upward movements, and even the prana leaving the body at the time of death is by the prana called Udana. And Vyana is the pervasive governing circulation, distribution of the assimilated food, maintaining the heat in the body throughout, etc. So the prana karma, the involuntary autonomous physiological activity of the body by breathing, digestion, circulation, etc., that continues regardless of deliberate choice. We don't have a choice of regulation for them. Including the prana karma in the offering makes this yajna absolutely comprehensive. Not only deliberate sensory actions, but even involuntary biological functions are offered into the same Agni. Which Agni? Atma Samyoga Atno. Into the fire of yoga of self-restraint. The 4-membered compound. Which are the 4-member? Atman. Here the functioning as an object of restraint. The Antakarana identified with Atman, that is being disciplined, and the ground of restraint, which is the Atma's own Swarupa as Akarta, provides the jnana basis for the restraint. The restraint is by abiding in the nature of Atma as non-doer. So the activities are from the non-doer's point of view. And when that is being done, samyama, the complete restraint or the total gathering in to hold them together for abiding in the Atma. Yoga, the discipline, the systematic sadhana of bringing the inner instrument of Antakarana into alignment with Atma for the abidance. And the whole thing is now treated as the Agni fire, consuming, transforming and purifying the medium. So Atma Samyama Yoga Agni, the fire that is the yoga of self-restraint, of the self or the comprehensive inner discipline in which the Atman, here the Jivatma, as the Antakarana is brought into complete restraint through yoga, constituting a fire that consumes all offerings of Indriya Karma and Prana Karma into the fire of the Atma Samyama Agni. Shankaracharya explains the Atma Samyama as the complete gathering of all psycho-physical activity into the Atma's witnessing presence, Sakshi presence. Not mere suppression of the senses, but the recognition of Atma, the witness Atma, as the unmoving ground, Akarta Sakshi, in relation to which all Indriya Karma and Prana Karma occur as Vivarta. From the point of view of Atma as a Sakshi, all the activities of Indriyas and Prana becomes Vivarta or appearance. The yoga here is not the Patanjali's 8-limbed yoga, Ashtanga yoga. though it includes it. But the complete Atma Yoga of the Gita is the discipline of abiding in Atma's recognition while all activity continues. The Atma is a Sakshi for it. Jnana Deepita is a word very specific here. Kindled or set ablaze by Jnana. That is the fire is Agni, or the fire is Jnana. Atma Samyama Yoga Agni is not self-igniting through mere discipline, but it requires the kindling of Jnana to the actual blaze. That is the time when the Jnana Agni Sarvakarmani Bhasmasat Kurute Arjuna becomes reality. Therefore, this compound, as per Shankaracharya, is the philosophical apex of the verse. And the distinction between Samyama without Jnana is cold restraint, discipline that suppresses but does not transform. Vasanas remain in latent condition on the individual, and it is capable of resurgence. Whereas Samyama, the same Samyama with Jnana Deepita, which has been set ablaze with the fire of knowledge, the Samyama is kindled into actual blaze or fire by Jnana, which means it genuinely burns and transforms the fuel of sense attachments to the objects of senses and the ego or the doership feeling at I am the engaged in action. Both the Vishaya Sakti and Kartrutva Abhimana. These are burnt and transformed by the Jnanagni. Jnanagni Dagdha Karman. It is the same fire called the Jnana Deepita Atma Samyama Yoga Agni in this verse. On the comprehensive offering of Sarva Prana Karma, a decisive expansion is taking place, Srotradi, Shabdadi senses, into total comprehensive Sarvani Indriyani Karmani. So it is not just the 5 sense organs or sense objects. It includes all, both external and both internal. That is, what is being heard when outside sound is not there, our mind chatters. The chattering of the mind is also a sound. We are able to hear it, or the sound we hear it in the dream. All of them are internal. So not only the external, but the internal also. The total comprehensiveness of Sarvani Indriyani and Karmani. Activities also. Not only the Prana Karmani. All vital activities plus the Indriya Karmani, which is in the waking and in the dream, both. This expansion is philosophically significant. The yajna of this verse 27 leaves nothing outside of the offering. So every flicker of the sensory activity, every pulse of the vital breath, every movement of the prana, all is included in the Sarvani. The Sarvani Indriyani Karmani. So that is how total the comprehensiveness comes in. This is the most comprehensive Vyavharika expression of 24th Brahmarpanam. All offerings is Brahman. So that all of the Brahmarpanam is this comprehensiveness at the level of complete psychophysical organism. Shankaracharya identifies the practical import. The practitioner of this yajna does not try to select which activities to be, restrained or which activity to be offered. This would imply remaining as karta by a selection process. but as an akarta, offers everything without reminder. That is, the sarva echoes samagra without reminder or completeness. That makes karma samagram praviliyate. Then only it becomes that dissolution of all karmas actually take place. And on the Atma Samyama Yoga, as the fire to receive that, Shankaracharya distinguishes Atma Samyama Yoga into two superficially similar practices. Mere Samyama, restraint without Atma, knowledge, that is simple sensory restraint, Dhamma, Pratyahara, etc. Control the senses by suppression. This is in the Ashtanga Yoga. The Indriya is held back from its object by effort. Atma Samyama adds the crucial Atma prefix. The same restraint is grounded into recognition of Atma as Akarta. One does not restrain the senses as a Karta of restraint, but recognizes that the Atman is neither the sense faculty nor its restrainer. Both the sense activity and its restraint occur in the Atma's witnessing field. And without Atma being involved as a Karta, the effect of the senses and the restraining do not have any effort, energy of its own. Therefore, when it's the witnessing field, this transforms the restraint from ego effort into yajna. The offering both activity and restraint together into the Atma's unmoving fire, which is the witness. From a mere yoga discipline without Atma, various yoga techniques can be practiced as technical disciplines without foundational Atma Jnana. But Atma Samyama Yoga specifically grounds the same all yoga disciplines in the recognition of Atman as the ultimate ground, making every yoga practice an offering into the fire of Atma, the self-luminous presence. Jnana Deepita. It is a philosophical crux. The most expansive commentary addresses the crucial qualifier of Jnana Deepita, which is meaning kindled by the fire of Jnana. Shankaracharya establishes the fundamental principle as Samyama, restrained alone without Jnana, is like a wet wood. It may smoke, it may smolder, but it does not blaze as a genuine purifying fire. The vasanas, the deep-seated tendencies in us of the Vishaya Asakti, attachment toward the objects of senses, are not actually consumed by restraint alone. They are suppressed, nirodhita, but remain capable of resurgence when restraint lapses. Many tapasvis who have practiced extreme physical restraint have demonstrated this. When the restraint ends, kama and krodha re-emerge in them with double the force. Whereas jnana is the kindling agent or the blazing agent that transforms the smoldering samyama into a blazing fire, deepita agni. The jnana that kindles is specifically atma jnana of the akartrutva, non-doership. The recognition that the atma's akarta, avyaya, unstained by any karma. When this jnana kindles samyama, the restraint becomes self-sustaining the jnani does not restrain senses by effort, but recognizes that Atman is naturally beyond senses. Therefore, the restraint is not an act of will, but a recognition of a fact. Genuinely consuming the jnanagni burns karma bija at the root, not merely suppressing but incinerating the vasana seeds, the tendencies of Vishayasakti, attraction towards the sense objects. Lastly, paradoxically effortless. The Jnana Deepita, or the fire of Jnana, burns without the practitioner's kartrutva. There is no doership to keep the fire burning, because Atma's fire burns of itself. It is self-effulgent. The consuming the fuel of avidya, the Atman is keeping its fire burning by consuming the fuel of avidya without intervention of the separate karta. This is exactly what every experience in the Atma when we surrender it is. The pratibodham when we surrender. Vidya vindade amritam. That state which we said, in the Kenopanishad, that is the fire of Jnana, Atman. Shankaracharya cites Mundaka Upanishad. Pariksha lokan karma chitan brahmano nirvedamayat nastya krita kritena. The Brahmana, having examined the karma produced by the worlds of activity of yajna, should cultivate niveda, dispassion. The nirveda or the dispassion is the additional shift in the form of jnana that kindles the samyama fire. That dispassion becomes the fire of samyama fire into a genuine yajna. Till then, it is a restrained activity, doesn't become a genuine yajna. When it becomes a genuine yajna, the recognition that the karma chitan lokan, action accumulated world, are antavat, that means perishable, finite in nature. Nastya krita kritena, that is why it is saying antavat. And that Atman alone is ananta, infinite and imperishable. So, knowing karmachitan brahmana nirvedamaya, dispassion developed as a fire of Agni. Nastya krita kritena. All the actions can never attain this jnana of Atma. Therefore, they develop the fire of dispassion, which is the fire which kindles the fire of Atma Jnana. The difference between the earlier verse and this verse, Samyam, is between the Samyama Yajna and the Indriya Agni Yajna of the previous one. Both are valid yajnas, but not explicitly qualified with a Jnana Deepita, with a fire of knowledge. They can be performed by practitioners at various levels for development of Jnana. Whereas this verse specifies that Jnana Deepita is yajna is explicitly grounded in Jnana. It is the yajna of the practitioner in whom Jnana is either fully established, Jnana avasthita chetasa, or sufficiently developed that it genuinely kindles the samyama discipline into blazing fire. Therefore, the Jnana Deepita qualifier makes yajna the highest of the Indriya level yajnas, bridging between the psychophysiological yajnas of the 26th verse to the purely jnana-based yajna that ultimately will crown at the 33rd verse. The prakarana inclusion is very important, significance from the psychological point of view. The prana has been included as a karma, prana karma, along with the indriya karma. That is the significance. In the offering, because the 5 pranas represent the most fundamental level of biological individuation. They are the vital forces that constitute pranayama, pranamaya kosha. The level at which the sense of individual jiva's existence is most predominantly anchored. Because we say prana, the sharira, as the prana is there, then the jiva is there. When the prana emits using udana, the jiva is a dead body. Therefore, inclusion of prana karma, prana kriyas in this yajna is vital. It is the most fundamental level, which is that including prana karma in the comprehensive offering, the verse asserts even the most individualization of the pranas, biological thing, like breathing, heartbeat, digestion, circulation, all are offered into the Atma Samyama Yoga Agni. Nothing is held back. So the entire organism, to its most basic vital level, is surrendered as the oblation, havis, into the fire of Atman, grounded in restraint. Shankaracharya connects this to the Prasna Upanishad and the Brihadaranya Upanishad, discussions of prana as Brahman. When prana karma is offered into Jnana Deepita Atma Samyama Yoga Agni, it is being offered into the recognition of the pranas themselves as Brahman's own vital expression. Prano Brahma, Brihadaranya Upanishad. The offering of prana karma into Jnana Deepita fire is thus the acknowledgement that the biological life itself is Brahman's self-expression. The most intimate possible yajna, in which the life breath itself is the oblation offered into the self-illuminous Atman fire. This anticipates pranamaya yajna, or the pranayama yajna here. That will appear in the 29th verse, where the pranas are explicitly offered into each other in the kumbhaka, retention. But in 27, this verse establishes a philosophical framework for the practice. This is not a breathing technique, but a yajna of prana into Atman, valid only when the jnana is deepita or kindled. So, when jnana kindles Atma Samyama fire, the practitioner recognizes it is not I who am restraining the senses and the pranas. The Atman Akarta Avyaya is not the restrainer. What is occurring is the recognition of Atma's natural transcendence of Indriyas and Prana constitutes a fire in which all Indriya karma, Prana karma are consumed. Not by Atman doing something, but by the Atman's mere presence as self-luminous witness, dissolving the apparent independence of Indriya and Prana. So, in this, we observe Prana, observe Indriya's activities, Prana activity and Indriya activity, as a Sakshi. And as a Sakshi, when we acknowledge that these are Brahman in the form of Indriyas and Vishayas, Prana in the form of Brahman and the Prana Kriyas, that is the prana yajna. This is the paradox of samyama. Genuine restraint is not karta restraining senses. It is a recognition of that the Atman was never bound by senses. And that recognition that senses are apparent binding of the Atman simply dissolves. It is not that prana is holding me in this body. There is no more limitation of the body and this prana limiting it. The jnana deepita or the fire does not burn the effort. It burns by recognition, by the aparoksha anubhava that Atman is akarta asanga. And the burning is the dissolution of karma samagra, the complete karma, into the Brahman that was never absent. There are only 2-3 lines. I'll read the Bhashya and complete it this so that we can move to the next verse on Monday. Sarvani indriya karmani indriyanam karmani indriya karmani. All activities of senses, that is functions, belongs to the senses. Tata prana karmani prana vayu adhyatmikaha tat karmani akunjana prasarana adini. Likewise, the activities of vital forces, prana, the inward life breath, such as contraction, expansion, etc. Tani cha apare atma samyogagnau juhvari. These two offer into the fire of yoga, of self-restraint. Atmani samyama, atma samyama. Restraint in the self is called self-restraint. Sa eva yogagnihi. That itself is the yogic fire. Tasmin atma samyama yogagnau. Into that fire of self-restraint, juhvadi prakshitpanindi. They offer or cast them into that. Jnana deepite snehena eva pradipe viveka vitnyanena ujjvalam bhavam apadite. That fire is kindled by the knowledge, made bright by the discriminative insights, such as the lamp is brightened by an oil. Snehena eva, yada snehena deepa pratipate. Viveka vitnyanena, this jnana deepa. The fire of knowledge is kindled by the viveka vitnyana. Juhvadi pravilapayanti ityartha. They offer means they dissolve into the fire, into the knowledge. So Shankaracharya here sums it up. Some yogis perform deeper inner sacrifice by offering all activities of senses and life forces into the fire of self-restraint. As a yogic inward absorption illumined by the discriminative knowledge, whereby the entire sensory vital apparatus is dissolved from the individuation or individuality into the inner stillness and prepared for the self-realization as the result. We will continue the 28th verse on Monday. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vasishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om. Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om. Thank you. Dhanyawada.
Thank you very much, Binduji. It was a very deep deconstruction and manana that I think I have to listen to a few times because I felt the whole methodology of manana nididhyasana is provided in that. That's my interpretation, Binduji. What is your, is that a correct interpretation?
It's the manana of what you have heard now in these verses will definitely transform into a knowledge which will help you to abide in the self-knowledge and see the activities of the body, of the prana and the indriyas, the sense organs and the vital air, etc., as offerings into the knowledge of Atma. They are not separate from Brahman. We will see them also as that is where the Sarvatma Bhava will come. That I am also. So till now we are holding on to the sense organs and its action as my actions, or I am the one who is seeing, hearing, etc. Same way, it is my breath. I will die if I don't breathe. All those feeling which we are having will naturally get shifted when we become the witness, Sakshi, Atma Sakshi, and observe these activities as offerings for the Atma to use the apparatus which is called the body. The apparatus is not us. The apparatus is of the Atma, and we are an Atma. So the I-ness which we are holding, or the ego which we are holding to the individuality, thinking, the sense organs and the breathing, etc., will be the one which will be losing. That is why it's karma samagram, the praviliyande, means we will move from a doer of breathing, eating, sleeping, etc., to the witness Atma. Therefore, we can become akarta if this yajna is done in the proper Shravana Manana Nididhyasana method.
Yes, thank you, Binduji. Your a meticulous offering of this is itself a beautiful yajna. So, heartfelt thank you. I have opened the chat and hand raising. If there are any questions, which I'm sure will arise as you practice. So if you want to come up now, you can come up now, or we can. Venkaji is coming up.
Namaste, Venkat.
Binoji, I think this is sort of, since I'm going through the first time, it sort of reflected on the journey I had on the yoga was without gnana. That samyama is extremely relatable here. And,
I know that.
Now,
in fact, I was thinking about you only when I was preparing for this.
Yeah, Binoji. So I get it now completely.
You and Gugu, these two people were in my mind.
Yeah, Binoji. So I think the shift is, Binoji, there are yoga Upanishads that provide the bridge. Apparently that knowledge is lost because the most you can get it is get a book, yogi books from maybe 18th century. That's the most, where Raja Yoga was prevalent and the Yoga Upanishads were prevalent. Without that, I think that was a struggle. Then I had to go around. There is a Kadapa Swami ashram in Bangalore. He documented these Yoga Upanishads along with yoga. I didn't find books that, along with the yoga practices, having gnana of yoga is, very rarely documented. So this is a struggle.
I would recommend you to go to the Ramakrishna Mission, and Swami Vivekananda has written 2 volumes on Raja Yoga. And it has got a lot of things which was covered now. Plus, he was a great yoga practitioner himself. In fact, his final stages also was a yogic samadhi. So if you read those 2 books, it's very thick volume of 2-volume Raja Yoga book. It is worth reading that. So you will get a total picture of how the yoga and the jnana together becomes the Raja Yoga.
Yes, Binduji. I think this is very, very relatable. Even the prana vinyas was speaking about, right? We push, even on an in-breath and out-breath, we push the, that Panchakshaya mantram. Even at those ends, we don't let anything else come in the way, because this is a complete restraint and pushing that mantram even at breath level, in and out. That kind of restraint is applied. Now it's very apparent with the verses. Nice one. I think this sort of bringing all those reflection back, and look like this need a yoga, at least minimum exposure to
Yes.
understand these verses.
See, if you have you studied that Vyasa commentary on Patanjali Yoga Sutra?
Yes, I studied those, Binoji. Those are studied.
Yes. Okay, then.
Because the issue is that without practicing yoga, even that I studied initially with no understanding. After doing yoga, when I studied, it was a completely, opening
Different.
up.
Yes. Yes.
So that's why the practicing yoga is extremely important to get to these verses. That completes the dimension of yoga and gnana coming together in each verses are inverting. I think first part of the verse and the second part of the verse, they invert each other. I think very nicely inverted here, which is very profound.
You will find more in the 6th chapter when we go to the 6th chapter also. There is a lot of practices Krishna is advocating.
Sure, Bandaji. We'll look forward to this. Thank you, Bandaji.
Thank you, Venkat. Okay, Prakash. I think nobody else is coming up. We can, tomorrow is anyway off day. Sunday we will have the Q&A.
Yes. Thank you everyone for coming. Yes. Yes, Bindri. Thanks everyone for coming. As always, you can listen to the replay, and which is very, very important to get the deeper meanings and interpretations with Bindoji's offering with such a meticulous and almost a practicum. So heartfelt thank you, Bindoji, for that. And you can also access these on YouTube and the 2 links shared in the chat for Apple and Spotify. And as Bindoji reminded us, tomorrow is an off day. We'll meet again Sunday at 8:30 p.m. IST, where we can come up with questions and discussion points and clarifications for an open discussion on Advaita. Our Bhagavad Gita class will continue on Monday at 8:30 p.m. IST. As always, thank you, Bindoji. Over to you to close the room.
Thank you, Prakash. Thank you, Venkat. And thank you all of you for having listened and attended. It's worth going through the replay once more, because we need to practice what we are hearing and learning. It is not just for hearing. The whole subject of the teaching is our Atma, which we need to abide in. Listening, and then when we listen and stay as what we were, is no beneficial for listening. The benefit will be there when we imbibe the teaching by practicing it. And for practicing it, when you listen it second time or third time, you will get an idea as to how to do it. Please practice it, so that let the fire of knowledge start illumining in your being. See you all on Sunday for the open house. Good night. Hari Om.
Hari Om. Good night.